quick. She's
I ran into Sue in the hallway. She didn't know we were meeting, so she's running downstairs to the annex to join us from the annex. So she'll be here hopefully momentarily.
We're live now. All right. Well, good morning still. This is the House Judiciary Committee with a voting session. Last night, the Senate moved House Bill 670. It is amended, significantly amended, and I will say significantly amended in part because it is part of a larger set of bills that we're seeking to address and are seeking to address the police reform issue in the General Assembly this year. It is one of the bills, and this committee yesterday passed out legislation on 3 other bills, or well, really 4 other bills related to issues that had initially been in the Speaker's bill and House Bill 670 that we then moved to the floor. There are issues and there are genuine problems with the amendments that were added to 670 as it left the Senate. And the question before the committee this morning is whether or not we will choose to concur with the Senate's amendments. I believe that we should choose not to concur with the Senate amendments. I think that there are significant differences that particularly in the charging process, but also as it relates to officers who have been convicted of acts of domestic violence, who would still, even though they wouldn't be able to hold a gun because they have been convicted of an act of domestic violence, they would still be able to be employed by a police department. For those reasons, I'm going to make a motion for this committee not to concur with the Senate amendments, and I recognize Delegate Moon.
Second.
There's a second on the motion not to concur. The Vice Chair?
I was going to second it.
That's fine. You've thirded it. Delegate Arakan. And I see you, Frank Conaway. So Delegate Arakan, then Conaway.
I'm just wondering what the process looks like if we don't concur to this. So are we not concurring to any of them or just some of them? What's the plan?
The issue right now, the bill that we have back in our possession where the question is whether or not we would concur is House Bill 670. So if we choose not to concur, then there's a conference committee. The conference committee would meet, would agree on the two, reconciling the 2 chambers' positions. And then we would come back and the bills would be brought back to the floor.
And what kind of timeline is that?
I mean, it's a question of how quickly those decisions and those differences can be reconciled.
How many members are on the conference committee? Isn't it 3 now?
There are 3 from each chamber.
Okay.
There's also the ability of the chairman can also choose to select a person to sit in an advisory role and be in the conference committee, although without an ability to vote in the conference committee. Delegate Conaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I looked at a few of the amendments. Those are the amendments, for example, on the polygraph for the police officer, but it's not admissible or discoverable. Is that one of the amendments also?
That's one of the amendments that was offered by the Senate. I don't know that that is one of the more concerning or troubling amendments.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Delegate Grammer, then Delegate McComas.
So we're being asked today if we're going to concur with the Senate changes, and that's how we have to base our vote. Can someone just briefly talk about what the changes are so we know what we're voting on?
The Senate changes, there are quite a few, but very broadly, it substantively changes the administrative charging committee process at the beginning of the process and effectively turns it into a second hearing. It turns it into a second hearing where both sides effectively would be able to present statements or evidence. The amendments also, and I'm looking here over here so that I can look at them, and I've spread them out here on the table here. They make changes to when the police officer's pension may be taken. I'm not sure that was one of the biggest sticking points of all of them. But it also indicated that a police officer who was convicted of domestic violence, and again, as I mentioned, would not be able to hold a firearm, they would be taken out of the bill as being somebody who would be relieved of their duties as a police officer.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Delegate Cox, then Delegate Comas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have not seen the Senate passed version, and so I feel a little in the dark being asked to vote on something that I've not even been presented. So I'm going to exercise my hold.
For this, we're not, fundamentally, it's a question of whether or not to concur. I mean, that just means we're going to go to a conference committee if we vote not to concur at this point.
Well, the last that
I don't think a hold is appropriate. I don't think a hold is appropriate here. The bill can't be amended at this point in the process.
Well, the last, Mr. Chair, that I had heard from, I guess it was a Maryland Matters article, was that a deal had been struck. And I was eagerly looking forward to reading about it in the actual print. And now I'm hearing something totally different within an hour or so of when I heard that, and I haven't seen anything. And so now I'm being asked to vote on something without actually reading it. That was my concern.
I understand. Delegate McComas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, what are the changes, and is there anything you can send us so we can look at what the changes are? You know, just because I feel like I'm working in the fog and I can't see anything.
I understand that. The amendments, and having spent some length of time over the last now 12 hours on the amendments were in fact emailed, and they're in your boxes.
Okay.
Delegate Williams was going to say. I think, look, we need to get this right. I think we have the time to be able to get this right, and I think that we can do it properly in a conference committee. With that, and seeing no further comments, the question again is on whether or not to concur. I'm going to make the motion not to concur with the Senate amendments to House Bill 670.
Second.
And we will take a roll call. Again, the motion not to concur. The Vice Chair,
Yes.
Delegate Arakan,
Your motion is to not concur.
not concur.
I'm voting no. I would like to concur.
Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Cardin,
Yes.
Delegate Conaway,
Yes.
Delegate Cox.
No, for the reasons I stated earlier, and also just because it was stated that the Senate President and the Speaker had committed a deal just this morning. So I think this is a little rushed, but thank you.
Delegate Crutchfield,
Yes.
Delegate Deborah Davis,
Yes.
Delegate Juanita Fisher.
Yes, and briefly, Mr. Chair, I wanted to say that, we are a part-time legislature. It's 90 days to do big work. I mean, you have to constantly be reading and doing it, and this is the job.
Delegate Grammer,
Yes.
Delegate Griffith,
No.
Delegate Rachel Jones,
Yes.
Delegate Lopez,
Yes.
Delegate Malone,
No.
Delegate McComas,
No.
Delegate Moon,
Yes.
Delegate Shetty,
Yes.
Delegate Cham,
No, and if I make my vote, all
Go
the
ahead.
part-time delegates to have received this information in the last 20 minutes, several pages came up. I started reading it and it was already time to vote. So I'm not, I'm voting no.
Delegate Ron Watson,
Yes.
Delegate Williams,
Yes, and my email came in at 11:10 this morning, so that was almost an hour ago where I got the amendments. Thank you.
So the motion again passes not to concur. We have seen a technical issue with Senate Bill 178 that we're going to seek to address. We're not ready to address that issue right now. Still trying to get to the bottom of a technical issue there. So we're going to take another look at that. Outside of that, that really is all the business we have for this voting session. We'll be going to the floor at 12 o'clock. There is a possibility that we will have another voting session later tonight. So please be aware that we may be having a second session later tonight.
Mr. Chair?
It's Deccan, yes. Delegate Arakan?
With the technical amendment, are we going to come back to discuss it, or are we just going to?
We would talk about the technical amendments. You know, traditionally, one of the things that happens towards the end of session is we would generally sometimes try and do these things on the fly where we would pull people off the floor. Obviously, we can't do that as easily. So we're trying to work that out at the same time. So that's one of the things that we have to do.
Understood. Thanks.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Delegate Cox.
Real quick, if there's any possibility to accommodate those of us who had planned Good Friday services with our kids, that would be very, very helpful if the speaker could do that.
When are your services?
7 o'clock.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll mention that to the speaker's office.
Thank you.
All right. We thank you all very much. And this concludes